Chapter 1055. Mu Qingyin was wounded 2-inch. Do you know who my father is? My father won't let go of anyone who has harmed me, no matter who it is. So, what was there for her to be afraid of? Gu Yi closed her eyes. Her delicate and pretty face seemed determined to stare death in its face. The corner of her lips curled up into a mesmerizing smile. In the breeze, her hair was moving lightly. Her expression was one of peace and calm. At this moment, a gust of wind blew, carrying over a familiar scent. The pain she was anticipating did not appear. Instead, she fell into a warm embrace. In the night breeze, she gently opened her eyes. Dark hair brushed past her face, and a dignified, handsome face entered her vision. Second uncle? Mu Qingyin carried the maiden's body, his eyes cold, quickly dodging the swords in front of them. Gu Yi's fingers tightly gripped onto Mu Qingyin's sleeve, her voice nervous. Second uncle, why are you here? Mu Qingyin lowered his eyes, his emotions unfathomable. I have been looking for you for a year now. Finally, he had found her, not knowing how it felt. Like a jot of current rushed through Gu Yi's heart. Her heart was beating abnormally fast, and her pretty little face was red. In Mu Qingyin's embrace, she felt very safe. Zhang Tianyu's eyes were cold. He walked over and arrived in front of Mu Qingyin in an instant. Bang! His palm collided with Mu Qingyin's in the air. Instantly, Mu Qingyin took a few steps back, a trickle of blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Second uncle. The Gu Yi before had always been under Gu Shi's protection. Having never been harmed, she naturally did not have the determination to become stronger. Even when she entered this secret realm, still no one had hurt her. Until this moment, she suddenly understood how weak she was and that she had even gotten so many people in trouble. Second uncle, you should leave. You are not the opponent of these Tianyue Kingdom's people. Go back and look for my father. Let him come and save me. A big smile appeared on Gu Yi's face, yet her voice was incredibly determined. All those years, she was fat and could not cultivate, while her second uncle's cultivation was slow due to his Bodis condition. Me for extra chapters. She did not know what her second uncle had faced in this 1 year that caused him to increase his strength at such incredible speed. But she knew she could not let second uncle die in this place. Now, the only people who could save her were her father or Shaoqing. Mu Qingyin hesitated for a moment. He really wanted to tell this silly girl that it was impossible for Gu Shi to come and save them, as he could not even enter this secret realm. But now was not the time he could explain. Zhang Tianyu's sword suddenly approached and very quickly arrived before their eyes. Mu Qingyin quickly retreated, yet the tip of the sword still appeared before him. Blood flowed out from his shoulders, and his handsome face lost all color. Second uncle. Gu Yi's eyes turned red. She glared at Zhang Tianwu with rage in her eyes. Zhang Tianwu continued to approach with a cold smile. His footsteps were incredibly slow, each step heavy, crushing against Gu Yi's heart. Marquis. Suddenly, a voice full of urgency sounded, caused Zhang Tianwu to stop in his tracks. Zhang Tianwu turned his head and coldly looked at the guard who was rushing toward him with an ugly face. What's the matter? Lady Yuan. Lady Yuan was pushed by the young earl, and now she is still unconscious. What? Zhang Tianyu's face changed drastically, and he was no longer bothered with Mu Qingyin and his partner. However, he also did not want to let these people go. So he shouted, Elder Gao, these two shall be handed to you for disposal. I want to see their corpses tomorrow. Chapter 1056. Mu Qingyin was wounded from the void. The old man in gray slowly walked over. In a few steps, he arrived before Mu Qingyin. His eyes were cold, like a venomous snake, causing Gu Yi to feel suffocated for a moment. Mu Qingyin subconsciously protected Gu Yi in his arms and looked coldly at the old man who was walking toward him. On this earth, you can cross anyone, but you're not allowed to cross my master. Boom. A powerful force came toward Mu Qingyin as he raised his arm to block it. The strong force crashed against his body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His body swayed as he fell on one knee to the ground. Luckily, he had managed to stabilize his body in time. I am unable to bring you back and explain matters to the Gu Manor Master. Mu Qingyin turned his head and looked at Gu Yi, whose face was covered in tears. He carefully lifted his fingertips and brushed away her tears. However, you don't have to worry. Since I have chosen to come to this place, I will definitely protect you. Gu Yi's tears flowed even more as it became more and more uncontrollable. But she held onto Mu Qingyi's hand increasingly firmly. Second uncle, if we manage to make it back, let me be Nanxian's second aunt, all right? She had never felt this way before. Becoming Nanxian's second aunt would definitely infuriate Nanxian to death. Little girl, you are still too young. So between us, it would not. I don't care. I want to become Nanxian and Xiaoqing's second aunt. Second uncle, am already dying, and yet you are still unwilling to satisfy my request? Mu Qingyin looked down at the little girl before him and smiled gently. For an instant, this smile was noble and elegant. All right, I promise you. After all, they could no longer return. So, why not fulfill this little girl's wish to become an aunt? Too bad, in the end. He was still unable to protect her and unable to give Gu Manor Master an explanation. Second uncle, Gu Yi stopped crying and broke into a smile. Not sure if I'm hallucinating, but why do I hear a wolf howling from ahead? Usually, there would not be any spirit beasts appearing in Tianyue Kingdom. This place is different from Tianshan Manor. Mu Qingyin smiled, not knowing how to answer. That was because he could hear this hallucination of the sound too. The man in gray was already very close by. Me for extra chapters. The sword in his hand was pointed at Mu Qingyin, and his gaze was sharp. He ruthlessly swung the sword over his head. Mu Qingyin wrapped his arm around Gu Yi's waist and dodged to the side. The sword cut into his shoulder, causing him to tremble from the pain. Blood was flowing out of the wound non-stop. Second uncle. Gu Yi got angry and left Mu Qingyin's embrace and rushed toward the man in gray. The man in gray made no movement, but a glint of murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Howl! This was a wolf's howl, coming from the forest not far away. Following that was a tiger's roar. Gu Yi was stunned. This could not also be an auditory hallucination, could it? She turned her head dumbfoundedly, and what she saw stunned her. A black wolf and a tiger rolled out from the bushes. These two guys were rolling about like a ball, fighting as if they were humans. One punched the other and one clawed the other, making terrible and angry growls. However, when this tiger and wolf saw the humans that were staring at them with their mouths gaping, they too were stunned. Done fighting? Not going to fight even more? Chapter 1057. Mu Qingyin was wounded. Ivan's arrogant voice sounded from the bushes. I thought you all would fight until the ends of the earth, never being able to separate. The maiden in red was a stunning beauty. She grinned and her eyes were full of laughter. She wanted to scold these two fighting spirit beasts, but she glanced coldly at them in their direction and saw the group of Marquis Manor's guards standing ahead. After that, she saw Mu Qingyin, who was covered in blood on the ground. Mother, there's so many things happening here. So many snacks. Little Qing Han appeared from the bushes riding a dog. Her little face was pretty, and when she smiled, she looked like a porcelain doll, cute and innocent. However, the more harmless-looking one was, the easier it was to hide the danger beneath the appearance. The man in gray frowned silently. If he really assumed that this little doll was innocent, that would be a great mistake. He kept on feeling that this little doll was more dangerous all the other people, especially when he saw that behind the maiden and the little lady was a dense crowd of spirit beasts. The old man's face darkened and his heart was wary. Xiao! Gu Yi's tears flowed and covered her face, her voice shaking. Xiaoqing, you've come, you've finally come. The moment Feng Ruqing saw Mu Qingyin, her dress was like a gust of wind when she stopped beside Mu Qingyi. He has lost too much blood, but he does not have vital injuries. Feed him the spirit herbs. Feng Ruqing's face was calm, but underneath the calm was a hidden storm. After checking that there were no major problems with Mu Qingyin, and she passed him to Gu Yi, she slowly got up and coldly looked at the man in gray with calm indifference. In an instant, endless murder intent appeared from the surrounding area, causing the air temperature to drop. Ah Wong. Woof. The hunting dog barked in reply as it wagged its tail and ran to Feng Ruching. Feng Ruching with a poker face. Bite off his right hand for me. Woof. The hunting dog turned his eyes upon the man in gray, and its eyes flashed with ferocity. It was no longer as docile as it was before Feng Ruching. Once the hunting dog had been tamed, it would only be loyal to one person in this life. It suddenly moved. Like the wind, like a shadow. In an instant, it appeared before the old man in gray. Me for extra chapters. The old man's face turned serious as he quickly drew out his sword to block the attack. However, the sword could not block the hunting dog's sharp teeth, and with a snap, it was bitten through. The old man in gray was frightened, but before he could even resist, he heard the Marquis Manor's guards screaming out their lungs. Elder Gao, quick save us. These spirit beasts have all gone mad. Ah! Help! Quickly save me. I don't want to die. The man in gray looked at the group of guards from the Marquis Manor with red eyes and saw that there were countless spirit beasts pouncing on them as if they were mad. All of the beasts used their strength to chew and devour them with cruel blood-red eyes. Animals. The man in gray let out a whimper of despair. Spirit beasts are still beasts. Beasts are naturally ferocious and without humanity. Today, they are so willfully attacking us humans. It is a waste that these spirit beasts are part of the mainland. All of them are animals. These animals never should have lived. Too bad. The Marquis did not listen to his advice to completely get rid of these animals. Was he hoping that these spirit beasts would have humanity? That was a joke. These spirit beasts were ferocious by nature and never should be kept as pets. It would have been better to kill them all than let any spirit beast willfully harm a single man. Animals? Feng Ruching waved her hand, firstly stopping the hunting dog, then walked toward the man in gray with a cold smile. You said that these spirit beasts are animals? Then, aren't all of you worse than animals? You said they have harmed humankind. Then what about all of you? The old man in gray scorned. Animals are animals. How can they be compared to us? Humans can kill each other, but animals don't have the right to hurt people. Chapter 1058. Enemies approaching the city I.O. You can't even beat the brute that you have just mentioned. You're nothing. Feng Ruching did not want to waste any more time. She turned calmly, and her red dress was floating lightly. She was so beautiful and elegant in the evening breeze. Kill them all. A bloody war was destined to happen in the woods at night. The red was so dazzling that even the sky seemed to be colored with blood. Feng Ruching walked slowly to Gui. Her hand fell on her shoulder. You better tell me everything without hiding anything. Gui's turned red looking at Feng Ruching's cold face. If it was in the past, she must have rushed into Feng Ruching's arms to seek comfort. However, she could not let go of the man who was still in a coma at this moment. It was Prince Zheng Tianwu from Tianyue Kingdom, and also the eldest prince of Tianyue Kingdom. Shaoqing, Princess Yulan was caught by those people when she was trying to save me. I want to go save her. Feng Ruching lowered her eyes and stared at Mu Qingyin, who was in a coma. Her eyes were unreadable. Let's find a place for my uncle to rest. He'll take care of the rest for you. Tianyue Kingdom. Zheng Tianwu. There was a murderous intent in Feng Ruching's gaze. Another man had collapsed under the fierce attacks of the beasts behind her. Blood splashed on her back, making her coat even redder, just like fire. There was a deserted city in Tianyue Kingdom, not far from Marquis City. There seemed to be an aura in this deserted city that was extremely impure. Therefore, the people who had originally lived in the deserted city had eventually left, leaving behind an empty city. Feng Ruching walked into the manor where the former Lord Mayor lived in the deserted city. She then turned her head and looked at the people who had followed her. Let's just use this place temporarily since there is no one here. Big Rabbit, do you still remember the herbal dishes that I have taught you? Squeak. Big Rabbit nodded enthusiastically. Woof. Awang barked and wagged its little tail before disappearing in front of Feng Ruching. Take my uncle to rest first, me for extra chapters. Feng Ruching lifted her eyes a little and looked into the white sky. In Marquis Zheng Manor. It was peaceful, but no one knew what kind of catastrophe was about to hit, taking away this tranquility. Marquis. The old man walked in from the door. He put his fist to his palm respectfully. Young Marquis has been kneeling outside the manor all night. He didn't mean to offend Lady Yuan this time. Can you forgive him this time for the deceased princess consort's sake? Zhang Tianwu had stayed awake all night, and his face was pale. He gazed at the old man's face sardonically. How dare you mention that bitch who wanted to murder you on her? She deserves to die. Back then, he was forced to marry that woman under certain circumstances. He thought she would just stay quiet and be obedient to the palace for the rest of her life, but he did not expect her to harm you on her. He would not allow anyone to hurt you on her. Marquis, His Majesty has sent an imperial edict to let Princess Yulan marry young Marquis. If anything happens to young Marquis, how should we explain to His Majesty? Chapter 1059. Enemies approaching the city. Zhang Tianwu was a little moved after hearing this sentence. His handsome face was still tense. Let him kneel for another 3 days and 3 nights. Only then, I will allow him to get up. They'll see if he dares to be rude to Yuan in the future. Luckily, Yuan is all right this time. If anything happened to her, I will not forgive that person even if he is my son. The elder lowered his head and stopped talking. The loyal ministers that had advised the Marquis that day were all killed. This was the only way that could protect him right now. He was also helpless. The stillness of the Marquis manor was suddenly broken by an anxious voice. Marquis, something is wrong. We have a big problem. The guard rushed in from the door in a panicked manner. He was very anxious and his cold sweat was dripping. He hurriedly kneeled on the ground. The spirit beasts have besieged us. The spirit beasts had besieged them? Zhang Tianwu sneered and was very unimpressed. Which spirit beasts dare to besiege us? We don't have to care about that. Someone will eventually shoot those damn animals to death. Marquis City had been peaceful for many years. However, the peacefulness and calmness were destined to be broken on this fateful day. In the inner court of the royal palace, Yulan's face was pale. She slightly pursed her lips. She then looked coldly at the woman sitting in front of her. The woman's posture was sophisticated and perfect. There was a small smile on her face. She wore a purple dress that made her seem elegant and noble. Sister-in-law, did you send people to follow Yi? Did you complain about her? Shindai smiled elegantly and calmly. Every move she made was so pleasing to the eye. So? But I did not say anything to your elder brother. I just sent someone to tell Zhang Tianwu. Then, he went to find your elder brother. Why? Why are you doing this? Yulan suddenly stood up. Her body was trembling with anger. She was very angry. What's the benefit of letting Gu Yi be elder brother's concubine? You should be happy when she left. Why are you doing this? Shindai slightly smiled and put the glass on the table. Did you think that your elder brother can tolerate her so much? Yulan was speechless. She has run away again and again. The eldest prince has lost his patience with her. The eldest prince did have true feelings toward her, so he had tolerated her and treasured her. However, she has really angered him this time. He will surely get her no matter what. Me for extra chapters. So, isn't it better if she leaves? Yulan bit her lower lip and asked. No, you are wrong. Shindai shook her head. The eldest prince is thinking of her because he did not manage to get her. I know men better than anyone. He will only lose interest in her once he has slept with Gu Yi. Otherwise, his mind and attention will always be on her for his whole life. Yulan felt cold all over her body. This was the first time she had gotten to know that Shindai, who was usually calm and elegant, could be so scheming and calculating. So scheming and calculating to the point that it was horrifying. It was impossible for Shindai to not love elder brother. Back then, when her elder brother was in danger, she had risked her life to save him. How deep was her love for her elder brother that she had even risked her life to save him? On the contrary, how perverted she was to push her man to another woman's bed. No one could go to such an extent as her. Chapter 1060. Enemies approaching the city. 3. Sister-in-law, Yi is innocent. She shouldn't be ruined by your selfishness and elder brother's selfish desires. Yulan's eyes were red. She used to think that men were terrible. Unexpectedly, women were also as terrible as men. Shidai looked calmly at Yulan. Women should understand their roles. It is already Gu Yi's honor that your elder brother is willing to accept her as a concubine since she is not strong and has no proper background. She shouldn't reject it. The more she refuses, the more he would care about her. She implicated that Gu Yi did not have the right to reject the eldest prince, and that only the eldest prince could abandon her. Yulan was disheartened. She clenched her fists. Are you done talking? Leave me alone. I used to think that you have abandoned everything for love, and even your life. Therefore, I have always admired you. However, you have become such a pervert now, a pervert that disgusts me. Shindai was not annoyed but instead stood up with a smile. Yulan, you don't have to be angry. I just came to tell you that your wedding date is set. You will be married to Zhenggong in half a month's time. Congratulations. Yulan smiled sardonically. She closed her eyes and sat quietly on the bed. She no longer spoke as she ignored Shindai. Shindai did not continue to stay. She glanced at Yulan deeply and walked out nonchalantly. She saw the eunuchs in the palace walking hurriedly just when she walked out of the palace. Her heart sank. She pulled aside a eunuch who was about to leave and asked, "What happened?" After seeing Shindai in front of him, the eunuch bowed with courtesy and said, sharply, "Your Highness, the spirit beasts have arrived at the city." The eldest prince was instructed to go check on the situation. Shindai stiffened. Spirit beasts? Arrived in the city? Were they crazy? She shook her head without thinking much. The spirit beasts were not so powerful on this mainland. So, there was nothing to be afraid of. Maybe some spirit beasts could not stand the oppression anymore and had come to retaliate. Anyway, it would be resolved easily with the eldest prince's strength. The eldest prince returned in a hurry not long after he had led the soldiers to the front line. He was proud because of the apparent victory. The entire marquis city was promoting the great merits of the eldest prince, and even the emperor rewarded him. I heard that the eldest prince has just led the people to deal with those spirit beasts. However, the spirit beasts had run away after hearing about it. They were probably afraid of the eldest prince after learning about his great reputation. Who do they think they are? How could they be our enemies? It's ridiculous. They are already afraid of the end before the eldest prince has even taken any action. Unfortunately, the city gate was destroyed by the spirit beasts, but it doesn't matter. The eldest prince has ordered people to rebuild the city gate overnight. It will just take about one night since many people are building it. Me for extra chapters. The next day, the morning sun had just rose. With a loud bang, the city gate that was half-built collapsed again. A group of spirit beasts, led by the wolfhound, walked in from the city gate. These spirit beasts did not hurt people. However, they rushed into the spirit beast pavilion to rob and release all the spirit beasts locked up by the humans. Not only that, but the spirit herb chamber was also facing the same crisis. Moreover, if they saw anyone enslaving and whipping any spirit beasts, they that were originally robbing would become extremely cruel and fierce. They would attack that person and take away his spirit beast. Then, they would swagger away. Chapter 1061. Enemies approaching the city ivies. The moment the eldest prince arrived, all spirit beasts had already left with the things they had acquired from the robbery. They left the city swaggering, just like how they had arrived. They were acting proudly as if they were the winner. The eldest prince's face was dark and gloomy. These damn beasts. If they come again tomorrow, I will not let them leave this city. The eldest prince decided not to return to the palace so that he would be able to arrive quickly when the beasts arrived. So, he lived in a courtyard nearby. However, he waited for several days in a row, yet the spirit beasts did not come. He thought that the spirit beasts would not come again. So, he returned to the palace unhappily. Just after he left, the newly built city gate collapsed again with a loud bang. All the residents in the marquis city became afraid after seeing the spirit beasts at the city gate. In particular, those stalls that had just brought out the spirit herbs, they were so anxious that they quickly hid them. In the deserted city, in the basement of the manor of Lord Mayor, Feng Ruching was sitting on the stone bench staring at the girl in front of her. Since coming to this manor, she had realized the reason why the aura in the deserted city was so impure. It was because all the pure spiritual qi had flown into this place, leaving only the impurities out there. It was just that Feng Ruching saw a girl inside when she opened up the basement. The girl's eyes were ignorant, and she seemed innocent. She was about 13 to 14 years old. Her face was still immature and young. The girl looked at Feng Ruching curiously. She did not understand why this human being was looking at her like this. "Do you want to eat?" The girl gathered all the spiritual qi in her palm and molded it into a ball. Indeed, it was a ball that was handed out to Feng Ruching. Feng Ruching looked at the ball in the girl's hand. She then looked at that young and innocent face. She hesitated for a moment. Ball? Feng Ruching was speechless. The girl blinked and seemed even more dazed. Feng Ruching stopped. "Should I call you Lingling? But Qiuqiu sounds nicer." Sure. Although the girl was still young, her body had already begun to develop. She would inevitably develop into a ball in a few years. Furthermore, she had handed a ball to Feng Ruching. So, Feng Ruching had given her that name. Me for extra chapters. Delicious. The girl smiled shyly and continued to hand over the ball that was full of spiritual qi to Feng Ruching. Feng Ruching took the ball. As soon as she put it near her mouth, the spiritual qi flowed into her body through her nose. She felt a burst of comfort all over her body. Bang! The spiritual qi had helped Feng Ruching break through to Immortal Warrior tier where she arrived at her bottleneck. Feng Ruching was speechless. Feng Ruching's spiritual qi was already very pure due to the black sword in her dantian. However, this little girl's spiritual qi was even purer than hers. It helped her to break through her bottleneck. Ahem. Feng Ruching coughed. "Qiuqiu, what kind of spirit herb are you?" The girl blinked. "What is a spirit herb? Can it be eaten?" Feng Ruching remained silent. Just forget it. A spirit herb that had not come into contact with a human was like a piece of paper. They knew nothing and were completely naive. "Qiuqiu, do you know why you are here?" The girl frowned as she chewed on her finger. "I remembered that there were a lot of bad guys that day. They were here to catch me. Then, my servants brought me to this place and hid me here. I don't know what happened after that. I haven't been out there and have been staying here obediently." Chapter 1062. The beggar in front of the Marquis Manor. Feng Ruching looked at the ignorant girl in front of her. She slowly stood up and put her hand in front of the girl. "Then would you like to leave with me?" The girl looked at Feng Ruching hard and eventually put her hand into Feng Ruching's hand. She smiled brightly. Her smile was as bright as the sun, and there seemed to be stars in her eyes that were like a vast sky. Okay, if it were not for the bad guys outside the door, she would not have hidden in this place for so long. "How long have you been in this place?" Feng Ruching asked as she tilted her head. The girl chewed on her finger. "I don't know. My servants used to give me food. Sometime later, all my servants were gone. The bad guys had brought me here. I was so hungry. I found out that the spiritual qi around could fill up my stomach. So, I fed on it." Feng Ruching was shocked. "So, did it mean that the city had become deserted because of Qiuqiu? What about your servants?" "Didn't I already tell you? Someone wanted to catch me. My servants had hidden me here to protect me. I did not know what happened after that. I was obedient and I didn't go out." Feng Ruching took the girl's hand. "Do you know who wants to catch you?" Qiuqiu stared blankly and shook her head. "I don't know. I don't know anything." It seemed that she really did not know anything. Feng Ruching did not ask any more questions. She then took Qiuqiu out of the basement. Little Qing Han was sitting in the courtyard, holding a piece of ginseng in her hand. She was biting the ginseng as if she was eating radish. Suddenly, she saw Feng Ruching walked out with a pretty young girl. The ginseng almost fell out of her hand. "Mother, don't you like Aunt Gu and Aunt Tang anymore?" At the same time, Gu Yi came out with a bowl of herbal dish. She was supposed to take the herbal dish to Mu Qingjian's room. However, she could not help but see the pretty girl next to Feng Ruching. Me for extra chapters. The girl's face was delicate, and her big eyes seemed to be smiling. She was so insanely pretty, especially her ignorance of the world that was reflected in her eyes. It was so arousing that it made people wanted to protect her. Gui failed to hold the bowl of the herbal dish in her hand. The bowl fell to the ground instantly and broke into pieces. Xiao Qing had never held her and Xiao Yin's hands. How could this girl who came out of nowhere be so close to Feng Ruqing? Gui bit her lower lip. She raised her hand to her chest. She scanned the girl from top to bottom, then she turned to look at Feng Ruqing. Xiao Qing, you are still my favorite woman, although I am motivated to be your aunt. Feng Ruqing was speechless. I don't care if you have many wives, but why have you never held my hand? Why? You would only kick me every time we meet. Gui felt wronged as she continued to speak. She was sad and whimpered like an aggrieved woman. Do you not like me and Xiaoyin? It doesn't matter if you don't like us. After all, we will be a family soon. Then, I will always be around you. I will let you know that you are still my favorite woman even if I am married to someone else. Gui did not care about the bowl on the ground. After finishing her words, she turned around and strode determinedly toward the morning light. Chapter 1063. The beggar in front of the marquee manor. Feng Ruqing was in a daze. She slowly turned her head and looked at little Qing Han, who had walked to her side. Is there something wrong with Gui's mind? Little Qing Han blinked. She was dumbfounded. Can the brain be eaten? Feng Ruqing's face darkened. She pinched little Qing Han's pink and tender face. You have grown fatter recently, and you are still thinking about eating all day long. This sentence of hers was like a thunder that struck at little Qing Han. Little Qing Han's body suddenly stiffened. The half-eaten ginseng was still in her hand. She did not know whether to throw it away or to eat it. She was stunned. She regained her senses and looked at the ginseng in her hand after a while. She swallowed her saliva. Then, she finally decided to throw it into the stream nearby. I won't eat snacks anymore. Otherwise, Brother Fuchun will see a chubby girl when he wakes up. He will surely laugh at me. However, her eyes were teary and she looked aggrieved as if she had been bullied. Feng Ruqing smiled and touched little Qing Han's head. Qing Han, go and inform Ah Wang and the others that all spirit beasts have to follow me to the Marquee City. Only the big rabbit and Chochio will stay at home. She could not bring Chochio out because she did not know who was the one that wanted to catch her. Feng Ruqing flapped her robe and walked out of the manor after saying this. This place was the manor of the Lord Mayor in the deserted city. However, the two words, "you manor," that was on Feng Ruqing's back looked so bright and shiny when she walked out of the manor. The silence in the streets in the Marquee City was broken by the sound of howling. Everyone turned to look at the city gate. They saw the spirit beasts that had just left, back again. A human girl stood at the head of the group of the spirit beasts this time. The girl was in a red robe, and she was beautiful. She had a natural dominating aura like an emperor who had devoted himself to all beings gazing at the world. A wolfhound walked next to the girl. There was another little girl who was riding the wolfhound. The little girl was lying on the back of the wolfhound. She was smiling and seemed very innocent, just like an ordinary little girl. It was just that, me for extra chapters. Those Imperial guards were stunned when they saw Gui standing to the right side of the girl. The captain of the Imperial Guards was a middle-aged man with a black mole under his mouth. He clutched the weapon in his hand and gasped. Quickly go and inform the eldest prince that those spirit beasts are back. And also, Maiden Gu. As the captain of the Imperial Guards, he must have known Gui. But had Gui not already escaped? Here she was, still daring to come back. Was she not walking right into the lion's den? What did you say? In Marquis Zheng Manor. Zhang Tianwu suddenly stood up. His face was dark and his fists tightened. Is that bitch, Gui, back? Initially, he had hurried back to the Marquis Manor because of some issues. Therefore, he had allowed Elder Gao to deal with Gui. But on the next day, when he sent someone to find Gui, he found out that Elder Gao was already dead, as if he had been eaten by something. His whole body was broken and torn into pieces. Coincidentally, there were a few spirit beasts that came to attack the city in the past few days. He had always doubted the capabilities of these spirit beasts that had come to attack the city. However, they had always retreated too fast. Even the royal family could not handle them, much less him. Unexpectedly, the spirit beasts continued to come to the city. This time, even Gui came along with them. Chapter 1064. The beggar in front of the marquee manor Jing Tianwu was a little flustered. If the eldest prince saw Gui, the eldest prince would know that he had sent someone to kill Gui that day. Therefore, he must kill the woman before the eldest prince got here. Bring all the masters in the marquee manor here. I want to execute the thugs who dare to invade the marquee city. He must protect the marquee city this time, even if it meant to kill Gui. The eldest prince would not have a say about it. He just did not want the eldest prince to know what he had done before. Yes, Marquis. The guard did a fist and palm salute, and then he retreated. He then brought all the masters in the marquee manor to Zheng Tianwu after a while. Zheng Tianwu counted them. His eyes were dull. There were originally a few hundreds of dark warriors in the marquee manor. Why are there only 200 of them now? 200 of the dark warriors was a huge number for other forces. But this was Marquis Zheng's manor. When his father was still alive, there were thousands of warriors in the marquee manor. But now, there were only 200 people left. Marquis, the guard lowered his head. Lady Yuan has driven away a lot of warriors from the marquee manor in recent years. So, these are the people who are left. Zheng Tianwu was dumbfounded. In the past 5 years, some of them were driven away, some were killed because of Lady Yuan. He was not concerned about this before. It was only now that he discovered that there were only a few people left. However, it was worth it no matter how much effort he had to make for Yuaner's sake. To fight the spirit beasts, 200 people are more than enough. Let's go. I want to make those bastards know who is in charge of this world. Zheng Tianwu flipped his long sleeves and walked out the manor fair and square. He did not seem to see Lady Yuan, who came out from under a tree after he had led everyone away. She stared in the direction where Zheng Tianwu had left. She was in deep thought and followed him out. She had always been free to do what she wanted in the marquee manor. No one could restrict her. Therefore, if she wanted to leave the marquee manor, no one would stop her. Me for extra chapters. At the gate of the marquee manor, a beggar in ragged clothes was holding a broken porcelain bowl in his hand. He was trembling as he sat in the corner of the street, not far away from the gate. This beggar's face was burned beyond recognition. His face was also dirty and was unrecognizable. Zheng Tianwu walked out of the door. He glanced at the beggar as his eyes darkened. Where did this beggar come from? How could my place be tainted by these beggars? Drive him away, and don't let him appear within 100 meters from the marquee manor. He left without looking back after he was done talking. Hence, he did not see the beggar's cold eyes. When the guard was approaching the beggar hurriedly hid the coldness in his eyes. He raised his head tremblingly. Sir, I am just taking a short rest here. I will leave later, thud. The guard kicked the beggar and sent the beggar flying about a few meters away. He then coughed and lifted his dark and ugly face. He looked at the guard who was standing not far away. Go away. If you dare to show your face here again, I will kill you immediately. The guard was disgusted. He spat on the ground unhappily before turning around and leaving. The beggar lowered his head and dared not to look up again. He did not speak from the beginning to the end. He then saw the bottom of a skirt in front of him after the sounds of the guard's footsteps were gone. Chapter 1065. The beggar in front of the marquee manor ivy. The skirt's seam was enhanced with fine, soft, and elegant blooms. The beggar lifted his head and saw a beautiful face. He felt in his heart just the way he did back then. But there was clearly only bitterness left now in this situation. Lady Yuan pulled a money bag out of her lapel and placed it in front of the beggar. Her voice was warm and soft, like a spring breeze. You can't stay in Marquee Manor. Take this money and go. The beggar looked at the bag of money that was thrown in front of him. His eyes were red, but he did not take it. A servant behind the girl shouted at him coldly, "Beggar, why don't you accept the money given by my lady? My lady is Prince Zheng's most favored woman. If you offend my lady, Marquis will not let you go." Servant. Lady Yuan frowned and shouted coldly, "Enough. Lady, I'm just—" "Shut up." Lady Yuan looked unhappy. There was anger in her eyes. The servant quickly shut her mouth, and she dared not say anything more. The lady was only a concubine, but Marquis always favored her. Otherwise, he would not have ordered everyone to address her as lady. Lady Yuan would be promoted to manor lady sooner or later. So, no one in this Marquis manor dared to offend Lady Yuan. One word from her would make the Marquis kill all those who disobeyed her orders. The beggar's body was cold and stiff from the servant's words. It took a long time before he bent down and picked up the money bag on the ground. His voice was somewhat choked with emotions. "Thank you, lady." Lady Yuan let out a soft sigh and shook her head with a bitter smile. Ever since the Yu family had been exterminated and Sir Yi had died without so much as leaving behind a body, she had never been this soft to anyone. In her life, all that left to do was revenge. To get revenge, she was willing to lose her conscience and even destroy everyone in the Marquis manor. But after seeing this lonely and helpless beggar, her heart softened. And that was all she could do for him. Lady Yuan turned around and walked past the beggar without so much a glance back. The skirt's horn that was enhanced with finely shredded petals floated past his eyes and disappeared along with the light breeze. Only a whiff of fragrance remained. The beggar covered his eyes with his hands as tears flowed through his fingers. He stumbled to the ground and started weeping inconsolably. The tears kept flowing, but he was still unable to make even the slightest sound of grief. No matter how warm the sunlight was, it could never warm his heart. They did not even need to see each other again. 5 years ago, he had escaped death and cultivated for the whole 5 years. He then returned to Tianyue Kingdom only for revenge. Me for extra chapters. He was like an evil spirit crawling out of hell, with no other thought except revenge. But the woman he had once loved the most had become his enemy's woman. How ridiculous was that? Ha ha ha. He was laughing inside, but his tears flowed uncontrollably, and he seemed to be venting out all the pain he had kept in those days. Not far away, Lady Yuan, not knowing why, turned her head to look back at the beggar behind her. When she saw the beggar was lying on the ground and crying out as if in pain, she frowned. What's wrong with him? The servant sneered disdainfully. Maybe it's been a long time since he has seen so much money that it made him excited for a while. Lady, this kind of person shouldn't. Smack? Lady Yuan raised her hand and slapped the servant's face. In the blink of an eye, a mark of 5 fingers appeared on the servant girl's cheeks. She kneeled on the ground in fear and kowtowed in front of Lady Yuan. Chapter 1066. The beggar in front of the Marquis Manor v. Lady, spare me. Please, I'm begging you to spare me. Lady Yuan pulled her hand back. You go back first. I'll report to the Marquis and ask him to give me a new servant. How many times have I asked you to shut up? Haven't you hear me? Lady Yuan said expressionlessly. The servant panicked. It was the lady who had asked the question first just now, and she was just answering it. Of course, she did not dare to speak up. She just needed to know that the lady was always right, no matter what she said. Otherwise, the Marquis would never let her go. Lady, spare me. It was my fault. I know I was wrong. I want to go for a walk alone. You head back first. She wanted to see if Zheng Tianwu could beat those spirit beasts or not. It would be better if Zheng Tianwu died on the battlefield, then the Yu family could rest in peace. Lady, the Marquis said that this place is not safe. Lady is not allowed to be alone here. Fine. If you don't leave now, I'll ask the Marquis to execute you immediately. The servant was dumbstruck by the latter's words. She knew that if she did not protect the lady, and that if something happened to the lady, then the Marquis would never let her go. But if she followed her, the lady would kill her too. Just as the servant was considering her options, Lady Yuan had walked quite some distance away. When the servant turned back, the figure in the green dress had disappeared into the crowd. The servant's heart shuddered and sank. Only one sentence came to mind. This time, she was really in big trouble. Outside the city. The beasts had come in from outside the city. Those who wandered in the street were scared that the crazy spirit beasts might hurt them. They hurried off to hide in their houses, not daring to come out. They were peeking through a small hole in the door to see the situation outside. The sound of deliberate footsteps was heard coming from nearby. Zhang Tianwu was the first one who had come forward. He looked at Gu Yi coldly. This time, without saying any nonsense, he raised his palm and dropped it again. Kill all the invaders of the Marquis city now. The skilled masters of the Marquis Manor made a move. The group of spirit beasts let out a roar and rushed into the crowd of skilled masters. Fresh blood painted the entire city red, and the whole sky was rendered red by the blood. Me for extra chapters. At one glance, Zhang Tianwu recognized these spirit beasts were all from the beast forest. His expression sank in his gloomy eyes. What's going on? Why did the spirit beasts of the beast forest come here? The spirit beasts of the beast forest were all extremely familiar to him. Only the beast forest had the wolfhounds, but those spirit beasts were not at the same level of strength as the ones in front him now. Just like the wolfhound, it turned out to be of advanced immortal warrior tier, and was identified as a holy warrior tier's little friend. Zhang Tianwu was so furious. He did not know what had happened and why the spirit beast's strength had risen so quickly. These days, many spirit beasts would retreat once the royal army appeared. Initially, he thought that these spirit beasts would not be too strong, but he did not expect that they were so keen to this extent. And now his rage had turned into dread. If the spirit beast's strength surpassed humans, then how would this piece of land still belong to the humans? Zhang Tianwu saw Feng Ruching with a few people standing nearby. A light flashed in his eyes. He brought over a holy warrior and said cautiously, "You go and settle those human girls first. No matter what, the eldest prince must not be allowed to see Gu Yi again. Even if so, it would only be the corpse of Gu Yi." Chapter 1067. Feng Ruching's counterattack. The sun was shining in the sky. The murderous tension was filling up to the brim. The skilled master of the Marquis Manor rushed in front of Gu Yi. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he was slashing around with the long sword in his hand. Feng Ruching extended her hand and pulled Gu Yi into her arms. She looked coldly at the skilled master who had rushed in front of her. The skilled master of the Marquis Manor did not stop moving. His mission was to kill these girls. As for who died first, it was none of his business. On the other hand, the skilled master found out that when he rushed in front of Feng Ruching, those spirit beasts did not react at all. Even the closest one did not rush to help her. Zhang Tianwu had also acknowledged this. There was a sneer playing on his lips and his eyes were filled with disdain. Spirit beasts will always be spirit beasts. Expecting them to protect their lord is simply impossible. This little girl is so pitiful. Zhang Tianwu's smile did not last long before it froze. That was because he saw Feng Ruching's hands reaching out and firmly gripping the skilled master's long sword. Her red dress was floating lightly as she held Gu Yi in her arms. Her dark eyes were cold and emotionless. The skilled master's face changed. He vigorously tried to pull back the long sword from Feng Ruching's hand but failed. What made him even more frightened was that it was such a long and sharp sword. Yet Feng Ruching could hold it firmly in her palm without any injury. At this moment, he only felt his blood was flowing backward as if it had solidified on his body. He lifted his head stiffly and his cheeks were trembling with cold sweat. This girl, puff. A groan sounded. The skilled master of the Marquis Manor lowered his head in disbelief when he saw the sword's hilt had pierced into his body and blood was dripping from his chest. The sharp blade of the sword did not hurt her at all, but the hilt of the sword, which should be harmless, had managed to pierce his chest. Boom. Before he could even say a word, the skilled master of the Marquis Manor had collapsed onto the dusty ground. His body lay straight as he met his end. Zhang Tianwu's eyes were somewhat solemn. Initially, he had just taken these vicious spirit beasts as enemies without thinking much of these human girls. Me for extra chapters. Unexpectedly, this girl was hiding her skills so well. To settle the fight as quickly as possible, he was forced to strike out. The longsword was like the wind, and its power was strong. The entire sky darkened for a few moments from this powerful aura. Zhang Tianwu's figure was like a long sword, slicing through the sky and landing sharply on Feng Ruqing. Feng Ruqing quickly pushed Gu Yi to one side and narrowly dodged Zhang Tianwu's longsword. The longsword split the wall behind it, causing a massive crack on the wall. All the stones had fallen to the ground. The man stood in the great breeze. His handsome face was cold. He looked at Feng Ruqian with eyes that were filled with intense murderous intent. "Little girl, wait until I kill Gu Yi first, then I'll kill you." He did not forget that it was Gu Yi who should be executed first. Zhang Tianwu turned around and suddenly a figure that seemed like a sharp sword shot toward Gu Yi. But he did not touch Gu Yi's face as numerous vines had broken out from the ground and wrapped around Zhang Tianwu like a long snake. Chapter 1068. Fu Chan has grown up. Seeing those vines that looked like long snakes, Zhang Tianwu's face was slightly changed. He jumped up suddenly and narrowly dodged the vines. After all the vines collided together, they quickly scattered again and pounced at Zhang Tianwu. Gu Yi did not make any move. When she was staring at Zhang Tianwu, the scene of Mu Qingyin falling in front of her appeared in her mind again. The hatred in her heart was infinitely magnified. She stared deadly at his fast-dodging figure with her beautiful eyes. She was not supposed to be here, but she still insisted on coming. She just wanted to see what would happen to those who had hurt her second uncle and were vain enough to deal with her. Swoosh! The gusty breeze rose steeply. Just as Zhang Tianwu was dodging the vines awkwardly, he saw a beautiful red-robed girl standing directly in front of him. The red robe was more voluptuous than the sunlight. The girl's eyebrows flared as she stared coldly at Zhang Tianwu, who was not far away. Zhang Tianwu's hair was messed like a beggar, and his cold gaze was tinged with arrogance and pride. "Who are you?" "I am your father. I came today to teach my son a lesson." Suddenly, Feng Ruqing was behind Zhang Tianwu's back. Zhang Tianwu tried to turn around, but his arm had been entangled in the vines. The hand in which he was holding the long sword was hard to move. Thud! Feng Ruqing kicked Zhang Tianwu's chest and sent him flying backward as he crashed into the stall behind him. The stall was smashed into 2 pieces. All the items on the stall fell and nearly buried him. He coughed as he got up from the ground. He suddenly used his palms to cut off all the vines that bound him. Just as he was about to move forward again, the sound of uniform footsteps came from behind him, causing his body to shake abruptly. He turned his head around gingerly and saw the eldest prince in a brocade robe, riding a fine horse leading the royal army. The eldest prince's face stiffened, but his heart was overflowing with joy once he saw Gu Yi. He then quickly walked toward her. The eldest prince was just about to grab Gu Yi's hand when suddenly a hand came from next to him and firmly gripped onto his wrist. At the moment, the eldest prince's expression darkened as he felt that his wrist was almost broken. He turned his head slowly as his gaze fell on a bold and beautiful face. Me for extra chapters. The eldest prince was not a pure-hearted man. Back then, he had fallen in love with Gu Yi's beauty and had forcibly taken her away. Now, the girl in front of him was so beautiful, so he would definitely fall for her now. But he preferred a young and weak woman who could bring out the protective streak in men, someone who was unable to escape his control. The young girl in front of him was not such a girl. She was too powerful, both in strength and temperament, to be his ideal type. A woman would always be an appendage to a man. He could not accept a woman who deluded herself into believing that she was more powerful than a man. "Let me go." The eldest prince's face stiffened. He screamed harshly and sharply. Feng Ruching turned to look at Gui. Was he the one who had captured you? Gui's expression was so aggrieved and pitiful. Xiaoqing, you do not know how miserable I was when you were not here. This bastard did not let me leave the palace, and he also wanted to break my legs. I thought I would never see you again. Chapter 1069. Fu Chun has grown up. Feng Ruching squeezed the eldest prince's wrist hard. At this moment, the eldest prince could hear the sound of bones cracking. He gritted his teeth fiercely, and his furious eyes were fixed on Feng Ruching. Immortal warrior tier. This girl is actually an immortal warrior, and he was only an advanced dark warrior. Just with one tier of difference, the level of strength was so different. The army was stunned. They swiftly surrounded Feng Ruching and the beasts while all their weapons were aimed at Feng Ruching's body. If she tried to make any move, they would shoot her immediately. Under the gale, the red robe fluttered. Seeing the eldest prince's face was almost completely distorted with anger, there was a soft smile on Feng Ruching's face. Her smile was almost unnoticeable. Did your hand ever touch her? Feng Ruching asked as she approached the prince. The eldest prince laughed coldly. So what if I have touched her? Crack. With a hard twist from Feng Ruching, the eldest prince's arms were all twisted. His face was distorted as it turned blue. Sweat dripped down from his forehead. He gritted his teeth and stiffly forced out a few words. Master. Master? Feng Ruching was stunned. The sky suddenly darkened a bit. When she looked up, she saw a figure that was like a flash of lightning crossing the sky coming from not far away. It was like a sharp sword rushing toward her. Mother, watch out. Qing Han's sweet face suddenly changed. Boom. Unfortunately, it was too late. A powerful force suddenly arose, causing Feng Ruching to be forced back a few steps. She then loosened her hands. Her cold gaze turned toward the elder in a white robe who was standing in front of her. Holy warrior tier. If Qing Han had not erected the vines as a barrier to shield her strength just now, she would not be able to stand steadily. Master, help me kill this woman. The eldest prince's eyes flashed with coldness as he could not forget the humiliation he had faced just now. There was darkness in his eyes that could not cease. Feng Ruching stayed silent, and her face turned grim. The elder in white robe walked toward Feng Ruching slowly. He stopped at the gate of this crowded city. Each step he took was heavy, as if he was stamping hard on Feng Ruching's heart. Me for extra chapters. However, Feng Ruching's expression was still undisturbed. Her eyes were as calm as lake water. Xiaoqing. Gui's heart tightened. She pulled Feng Ruching's hand and looked at the eldest prince with a stubborn gaze. The hatred in her eyes had ignited the anger in the eldest prince's heart. Her face turned slightly pale. Do not rely on my affections for you when you keep trying to challenge my patience. Just because I can tolerate you for the first time, doesn't mean that I can do it for the second and third time. Gui, my patience has a limit. He had already restrained himself when Gui once had a delusional thought of running away from him, and now she wanted to escape again and again. What was not right about him that made her want to escape? Now she was willing to wallow in the mire with these spirit beasts just to get revenge on him? Ridiculous. The eldest prince's deep, dark eyes were shining with a wicked light. This time, he would not indulge her anymore. As long as Gui became his woman, there was no way she could escape from this life. Feng Ruching's hand rested on Gui's shoulder. She nodded and revealed a small smile. Just go wait by the side. No matter what happens, do not come up here. Chapter 1070. Fu Chun has grown up. Gui grasped Feng Ruching's hand tightly. Xiaoqing, my second uncle needs your care. Remember, no matter what, do not come up here. Feng Ruching shoved Gui away and flicked her sleeves forward. Under the light breeze, her back was as firm as the mountains and as reliable as the sea. Somehow, it gave people a sense of calm and peace. Perhaps it was the reason why countless girls were willing to be with her and would be willing to die for her with no regrets. There seemed to be a faint gleam of admiration for Feng Ruching in the eyes of the elder in the white robe. But the eldest prince was his disciple and also his grandson. He would not allow anyone to bully him. Naturally, all humans would defend their own family whether or not they were right or wrong. Swoosh! Numerous vines broke out from the ground and instantly rushed toward the elder in the white robe. The elder in white robe leaped up and lithely evaded the vines. His was like a flash of lightning whose pace no one could ever catch. Little Ching Han turned pale at once. Seeing that the elder in the white robe was about to rush toward Feng Ruching, Little Ching Han quickly twisted the vines into a ball and threw it at the elder in white robe with a great force. The elder in white robe expressionlessly moved a few steps to the side and dodged the vines. In an instant, he was already in front of Feng Ruching. Boom! His palm gathered a powerful force as a fierce storm swirled around it. Feng Ruching lifted her beautiful face. Her dark eyes remained calm, and it seemed that there was no way to see any anxiety in her eyes. Later, he saw a gaping hole in the sky above her. A tall boy appeared. He was about 10 years old with a childish and delicate face, but he already had a calmness that did not reflect his age. Brother Fuchan. Little Ching Han immediately recognized the boy standing above the void. A gleam of joy flashed in her eyes. She rushed toward the boy. The boy bowed his head and caught Little Ching Han with a soft smile on his face. Mother, me for extra chapters. After hugging Little Ching Han, the boy looked up at Feng Ruching again, his voice warm and soft. Feng Ruching was speechless. Her adopted son had grown up? Why did he not look like her son? Sure enough, everyone's eyes fell on Feng Ruching. Gui blinked distractedly. Xiao Qing, did Nancian force you to have a son when you were 10 years old? Feng Ruching was speechless. Could she say she did not know this person? Brother Fuchan. Little Ching Han held Fu Chen's head with her hands. She felt happy and wronged at the same time. If I have not woken up earlier, I should have been as tall as Brother Fuchan. A long period of starvation had made us shrink, but Brother Fuchan has grown taller while I am still so short. They used to be 2 little melons. Right now, only she was the little one among the 2 of them. The elder in white did not make any reckless moves. He just wickedly stared at the boy who was standing in the void. Others might be confused by the boy's childish face, but he could sense that the boy was dangerous, at least more dangerous than anyone he had ever met. Chapter 1071. Fuchan has grown up 4-inch Brother Fuchan. That person was so horrible. Ching Han puffed out her cheeks and glared at the elder in white fiercely. Just now he bullied Mother and wanted to beat her. If Brother Fuchan had not woken up, Mother might have been beaten up by him. Fuchan raised his gaze and stared coldly at the elder in white. With a loud bang, the monstrous aura spread out, and the entire sky became cloudy. Who the hell are you? The elder in white narrowed his eyes and asked in a deep voice. I am a good son of your ancestors. The elder's face distorted. Without any word, he smiled coldly and rushed toward Fuchan at lightning speed. By comparison, Fuchan's speed was faster than him. His figure was slim, but there was an infinite power inside that body. The 2 men's palms collided in the air. A powerful force, like a tornado, was suddenly unleashed. It instantly destroyed all the surrounding stalls and trees and turned them into dust. Feng Ruching lifted her eyes and saw Zhang Tianwu was running toward the street as the situation was getting worse. She lowered her face. Fuchan, Ching Han, I will leave all this in your hands. Protectee, Awang, you come with me. Woof. Awang barked and followed Feng Ruching to catch up with Zhang Tianwu. Outside the city's gate, it was a suburb. Zhang Tianwu stopped in his tracks. He was not running anymore. Instead, he looked like he was waiting for Feng Ruching. Watching Feng Ruching and Awang coming to him, Zhang Tianwu returned to his senses. A smile played on the corners of his lips, especially when Zhang Tianwu saw that Feng Ruching had only brought a wolf along with her. He smiled even wider and laughed out loud. I don't know whether she is too confident or foolish enough to come with a wolf. Little girl, I haven't used my full power in the Marquis City just now, but we are in the suburbs now, and those people are still busy fighting, so I don't have to hide anymore. Ha ha ha. Me for extra chapters. He laughed continuously, and the momentum of his laughter gradually increased. Initially, he was just of lower immortal warrior tier like Feng Ruching. But now, he had already made a breakthrough from lower immortal warrior tier to intermediate tier, and it would not stop until he reached advanced tier. For some reason, Feng Ruching had always felt that Zhang Tianwu's aura was somewhat unusual, and it seemed like it contained a raging force. In normal circumstances, no one below Holy Warrior tier could beat him. There were a lot of informers in the royal city. To avoid the scourge of His Majesty, I dared not expose too much. But now, there are no informers here, so I don't have to hide it anymore. Little girl, if you dare to catch up and cast away your life, then I will give you a ride. Puff. Feng Ruching received a hard punch on her chest, causing her to spit out a mouthful of blood. Wang roared angrily and rushed toward Zhang Tianwu. Zhang Tianwu glared at Wang coldly. The raging force made his eyes turn red with a bloodthirsty glow. Wang, come back. Perhaps it was the words from Feng Ruching that had stopped Wang from pouncing on Zhang Tianwu, but there was a look of wariness and hostility in its eyes. Feng Ruching wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and smiled coldly. You once took the fire spirit fruit, which will turn one's spiritual power into a fire and become more and more violent. Even within the same rank, no one is your rival. Zhang Tianwu narrowed his eyes. So, you have already guessed it? Chapter 1072. Fu Chun has grown up. Feng Ruching smiled a little. The jade pendant that you are wearing around your waist has the function of concealing the strength. From the surface, it looks just like an ordinary jade pendant. Zhang Tianwu's heart beat faster. So, you know everything? So why did she come with a wolf? Is she so afraid of death? I knew it. You were trying to protect Gui and those people, right? And you are afraid that ID hurt them after exposing myself to save my own life? Oh, and your daughter, who is supposed to be a spirit beast from a plant, she is afraid of fire. So you're luring me away from them to come out here? If Feng Ruching had wanted to stop him, there was no way he would have had a chance to escape then. After all, there was only this wolf and the little plant girl in that place. And if he had wanted to escape, he would have used his real power. Then was she afraid he would hurt those people? You have guessed a part of it. Feng Ruching smiled. And there's another part that you couldn't guess. Zhang Tianwu froze for a while. Could there be any other reason for Feng Ruching to come after him? Without waiting for Zhang Tianwu to think about it, Feng Ruching turned her head to look at Wang. Wang's innate skill was excellent. It had reached advanced immortal warrior tier in just a short time, and it was only one step away from the holy warrior tier. Moreover, the spirit water that it had soaked in was lesser than the other spirit beasts, yet it could make a breakthrough faster than them. Feng Ruching then took out a bottle of spirit water from the medium and handed it to Wang. During that time, she gave the spirit beasts spirit water that had been diluted in the lake water with light effectiveness. But for Wang, that diluted spirit water was functionless. This time, she would give him undiluted spirit water. Using the spirit water during the breakthrough in the Sky Warrior Tier's realm was the best. It was such a waste for a dark warrior to consume it, but for a holy warrior, consuming it would not help them to make a breakthrough either. It was only at Wang's current strength that it was the best time to consume the spirit water. Initially, she had wanted to wait for Wang to consolidate its strength, but now there was no time to wait. She had to let it take the spirit water directly. This is Zhang Tianwu was confused. He did not understand what Feng Ruching was pulling out. He then saw Wang stick out its tongue and licked a drop carefully. Yes, it was just a drop. With a loud bang, a powerful spiritual force rushed through Wang's body, and it had reached another peak. A Tier 7 spirit beast. It was equivalent to a holy warrior. Me for extra chapters. Zhang Tianwu was stunned for a moment. His eyes were filled with greed as he looked at the spirit water in Feng Ruching's hand. This thing surprisingly can make a breakthrough to holy warrior tier. If he could have a chance to take it, Yu Kingdom and the entire world would be his. Ha ha ha. And today, No one would ever be his match. Zhang Tianwu licked the corner of his lower lip. It was a waste that a wolf had consumed such a thing. It was too bad. Such a good thing should be in his charge. That's why I left with you. An ordinary man with a cherished item would arouse the envy of others. She could not expose something like the spirit water to this world. She could only use a trick and follow Zhang Tianwu out of the city. As for Zhang Tianwu, he was going to die anyway, so there was no worry about him spreading the news about this thing. Awang could feel the power within its body, and it was growing bigger. It was just a wolf, an ordinary stray wolf. By chance, it was able to start cultivating. It had met such a good human as its master, and it was only then that it could make a breakthrough to Holy Warrior tier. Chapter 1073. Fuchun has grown up VI. Was there any other dog that could compare with it?
Master,
Awang turned at Feng Ruqing. Do you want to see him being tortured, or tortured, or tortured? Feng Ruqing was silent for a moment as her eyes were fixed upon Awang. Awang, you can speak now? Awang shook its head. Master, I'm not sure. Suddenly, I can speak like a human. Feng Ruqing remained silent. It seemed that once a spirit beast broke through to Holy Warrior tier, it could speak just like a human. But what about Little Qing? The snake was weak, but why could it speak like a human? Or was it once a holy warrior and somehow it had been demoted? Was that made it so weak? Awang, kill him. Then let's go back to Fuchun and the others. Awang grinned. A fierce glint flashed through its eyes. Zhang Tianwu had not recovered his senses yet, but Awang had already pounced on him fiercely. Zhang Tianwu was unable to resist its attack and was viciously knocked to the ground. Awang bared its sharp teeth and bit down on Zhang Tianwu's arm. Hiss! Zhang Tianwu gasped for air. His eyes seemed malicious as he grabbed Awang's head with one hand, trying to lift it from his body. The spiritual power gathered in his palms was extremely hot. Even though Awang had broken through to Holy Warrior tier, its fur was still burned from the heat. Fortunately, he had made a breakthrough. If Feng Ruqing had not stopped it just now, it could not have been Zhang Tianwu's match with its immortal warrior tier strength. Zhang Tianwu used all his strength to kick at Awang's abdomen. The wolf's abdomen was fragile. Awang cried piteously and removed itself from Zhang Tianwu's body. However, it quickly reacted and pounced back on Zhang Tianwu. This time, Zhang Tianwu had rolled to the side and had narrowly avoided Awang's teeth. Awang's eyes became more and more ferocious. It roared angrily and gave Zhang Tianwu a big bite, and this time, Zhang Tianwu could not dodge it. The flesh on his arm was torn off and blood dripped down his arm. Feng Ruqing crossed her arms in front of her chest and quietly looked at Zhang Tianwu, who was under Awang, dodging its ferocious bite. Unfortunately, all the skilled masters of the Marquis Manor were left behind in the city. No one could save him from Awang's bites. Suddenly, Feng Ruqing's eyes narrowed. She sensed that something was not right with Zhang Tianwu's strength. It seemed like there was a sign of a breakthrough. Me for extra chapters. Everyone knew neither men nor spirit beasts could be disturbed by outside forces when they were making their breakthrough, and no one could approach them. That was why Zhang Tianwu did not stop Awang when it was making a breakthrough just now. Awang. Feng Ruqing's expression dramatically changed. Awang also sensed something was wrong. The strikes became more and more violent, and more blood gushed out of him. No matter how badly hurt he was, he would protect his neck well. As long as he did not get his neck snapped by this dog, he could still hold on. Boom. Suddenly, Zhang Tianwu's bottleneck loosened. The spiritual qi above his head began hovering and forming a storm vaguely. Ha ha ha, I'm going to make a breakthrough. I'm finally going to make a breakthrough. He had been holding this for so many years. But why? Because he had wanted to make a breakthrough to Holy Warrior tier. But he was stuck at the bottleneck, and it did not move at all. He would not be able to make a breakthrough at his bottleneck if he had not been pushed to the brink today. Chapter 1074. Fuchun has grown up VII from now on. He would never let go of anyone who had hurt him. The whole Yu kingdom would be under his control. Ha ha ha. Marquis. At this moment, a figure approached him hastily. A familiar voice had made Zhang Tianhui's heart skip a beat. He looked up quickly and saw a stunningly beautiful face in front of him. The woman who had rushed over to him was like a soft and beautiful vixen with an attractive quality to her. She was the most favored woman in his life. Lady Yuan's face was pale. Tears fell from her eyes as she walked through all the dangers and came to him. The anxiety at the bottom of her eyes was so intense that it made Zhang Tianhui's heart soft and defenseless. No one could approach the breakthrough process as the person making a breakthrough did not want anybody to interrupt him. That was the rule, and no one could break it. But that did not mean that the people who were close to them had no way of getting close. Lady Yuan threw herself into Zhang Tianhui's arms and put her head against his chest. His robe was drenched in tears, making his heart shivered. The spiritual power in the sky was still there, and later, he would be able to make the breakthrough to Holy Warrior tier. With the aid of Fire Spirit Fruit, no one would be able to go against him in the future. Zhang Tianwu wrapped his arms around Lady Yuan calmly. He did not see the dagger in Lady Yuan's hand, and suddenly, it was stabbed into his back. The dagger had been coated with poison that could restrict his spiritual power, and suddenly, the brewing storm was spiraling and the sky had all disappeared. The whole sky had calmed down. With Zhang Tianhui's strength, Lady Yuan could hurt him, but her strength was not enough to kill him. Even if the poison were in his body, it would eventually vanish because of the Fire Spirit Fruit. But he was in danger now. If he successfully made a breakthrough, then there was nothing they could do about him. The world was all his. If he was interrupted, then nobody knew when the next breakthrough would happen again. Zhang Tianwu looked at Lady Yuan in disbelief. His face was pale, and his voice was trembling. Why did you? Lady Yuan laughed out loud. Her previous soft and foxy eyes were now filled with hatred that seemed to devour his soul. Why? You still have the cheek to ask me why? You have only heard that the Yu family had a spirit herb that could transform into a person, so you have eliminated the whole Yu family and harmed my beloved Suryi. Me for extra chapters. The hatred in her eyes stung Zhang Tianhui's heart and made him so furious. With a loud bang, a palm slammed at Lady Yuan's chest. All of this was so unexpected. Not only was Feng Ruching frozen, Wang, a dog too, was stunned. They did not understand what was going on there. Hence, when Feng Ruching looked back, she saw Lady Yuan collapsing in a heap with a loud crash. There was a trace of blood trailing from the corner of her mouth. That punch had hit her right in the heart, and the spiritual qi had pierced through her heart like a sword. Any injury could be treated, except for a broken heart, and any poison could be cured, except for aphrodisiacs, which was incurable. Cough, cough. Lady Yuan coughed up a mouthful of blood. Her face seemed to be at peace at last as she fixed her eyes upon Zhang Tianwu, who was standing not far away from her. Zhang Tianwu could not make a breakthrough. He was going to die, and she had finally avenged Suryi. Today was the day that she had been waiting for a long time. Zhang Tianwu foolishly looked at his palms and turned to Lady Yuan, who had fallen to the ground. His eyes were suddenly filled with grief as he cried out painfully, "Yuaner." Chapter 1075. Fu Chuan has grown up VII obviously. It was obvious that he was just angry and could not control his hands, but he had already avoided her vital points. Why? Why did she get herself into this? But even if Yuaner had hurt him so much, he still could not let her die. Why? Why are you doing this? Why? Tell me, Yuaner, what have I ever done to you? Am I not good enough for you? Did I not love you enough? I killed countless innocent people for you to make you happy. Why did you do this to me? Zhang Tianwu kneeled on the ground with pain. Blood was dripping from his back. With the emotionless gaze, he slammed his fist on the ground hard. Lady Yuan closed her eyes. Zhang Tianwu was nice to her. If there was no Yu family or Suryi in her life, if she did not carry any deep grudge, maybe she would have ended up falling for Zhang Tianwu. Unfortunately, It was impossible. She loved Sir Yi and the Yu family. Zhang Tianwu had destroyed the Yu family and killed the man she loved the most. He would only be her unrequited enemy. She lived for revenge. Her bottled-up vengeance would soon be quelled, and then she could finally rest in peace and meet Sir Yi again. Master, Ah Wang turned his head. Can she still be saved? The appearance of this human had helped them, so it was hard to see her dead without saving her. Feng Ruqing shook her head. If it were her arm that broken, her leg that was lame, her liver, spleen, kidney, or lungs, I could have healed her. But her broken heart, there is simply no way to save her. The spiritual chi from the slap had shattered her heart. No matter how good the medicine was, nothing could be done. Lady Yuan closed her eyes. She seemed quiet and peaceful. A smile played on the corners of her lips. Zhang Tianwu froze in his place. He stared blankly at Lady Yuan, who was already out of breath. The pain was invading his heart, making him howl grievously. The painful howl echoed through the entire suburb sky, lingering for a long time. After a while, Zhang Tianwu staggered toward Lady Yuan with tears streaming down his cheeks. He kneeled on the ground slowly. Yuaner, I have finally recalled the Yu family, me for extra chapters. Back then, if I had taken you away without exterminating the Yu family, would you have not bottled up the hatred? Would you have been willing to spend your life with me? To him, Yuaner was as important as this world. But now he had lost the world and had killed the woman he loved the most. Ha! Zhang Tianwu tugged at his hair, harshly with grief in his eyes. He did not see a figure who looked like a beggar staggering over. His body froze when he looked at Lady Yuan's lifeless body that had fallen to the ground. He had followed Yuan from the Marquis Manor, but was blocked halfway, causing him to arrive late. But why? Why did this happen? Yuaner. His voice was hoarse. He stared sharply at Zhang Tianwu with his red eyes filled with hatred. You killed me and took away my beloved woman. Have you also killed Yuaner now? Zhang Tianwu finally turned to the beggar. Are you from the Yu family? The one that Yuaner had mentioned? Sir Yi? Yu's hair and beard were unkempt. His face had been ruined, and he looked so ugly. His eyes were bloodshot with a ferocious light like a wolf that was fierce and vicious. No, it wasn't me who has killed Yuaner. It was you. If it weren't for you, Yuaner wouldn't have rushed out and stabbed me with a knife just now. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't lose my conscience and killed her. It's all your fault. You deserve to die. Chapter 1076. Fu Chun has grown up. Zhang Tianwu lifted his head. His aura was surging like the mountains and seas. If she hadn't thought that you were dead, she wouldn't have intended on dying. I didn't want to kill her. It was her who didn't want to live anymore. So she had done this at her own will. It's all your fault. Yu's gaze froze, and he stiffly turned his head to look at Lady Yuan, who was next to him. Lady Yuan had stopped breathing. Her body was cold and her face was pale, lifeless. Yuaner had entered the Marquis Manor, disregarded death, just to avenge him, and she did not submit herself to his enemy. If he and Yuaner had reunited in front of the Marquis Manor back then, none of this would have happened, would it? It was his fault. He was the one who had gotten her killed, and he was the one who did not trust her. It was also him, who was afraid to reunite with her because of his weakness. Ha ha ha. Yu guffawed boisterously with tears in his eyes. It was I who has killed Yuaner. It's my fault. It's all my fault. Unfortunately, there was no chance for him to seek forgiveness. Yu crouched down and picked up Yuaner's body. He stumbled a bit, and the moment he turned around, his figure seemed so desolated again. If she could open her eyes again, he would not want revenge anymore. He just wanted to take her hand and bring her out of this fire pit. He only wished to be alone with her and never be parted again. There were no more ifs and no more regrets. He had lost the love of his life due to his weakness and self-abasement. Let her go. Zhang Tianwu roared angrily. He was about to step up and block Yu from taking Yuaner away. Ah Wang. But at that moment, a voice shouted as the damn wolf appeared again, blocking his way. He burst into rage and swung his fist down. Get out of my way. No one could take Yuan'er from him. Whether she was alive or dead, Yuan'er would always be his. Zhang Tianwu's eyes were red. He looked fierce and terrifying. When his fist had almost reached the target, Awang opened its mouth and bit down Zhang Tianwu's fist fiercely. Me for extra chapters. The bright red blood oozed from the back of the hand and dripped onto the grass. Feng Ruqing was sweating. It seemed that if a dog was fighting, it would only bite. Awang's teeth were indeed sharp. With just one bite, the back of Zhang Tianwu's hand was yanked away and torn apart. His gaze was laced with provocation and contempt. To survive, Zhang Tianwu was forced into a desperate situation and was about to break through. Now, he had attacked recklessly as his anger and anxiety had affected his emotions. Especially after seeing Yu Ye's figure was almost fading away, Zhang Tianwu became more anxious and defenseless. Awang took this chance and bit down on the nape of his neck. As this continued, a fountain of blood flowed from his neck uncontrollably. Zhang Tianwu's body froze as his vision became so blurred, he fell to the ground. He was extending his hand, trying to reach out to grab the figure that was about to disappear from his sight. As if he could pull back those who had left, Awang wagged its little tail in triumph and rushed back to Feng Ruqing with its sneaky grin as if it was waiting for her compliment. Fu Chen's battle should be over by now. Feng Ruqing raised her hand and touched Awang's little head. Let's go. We should go back. She calmly looked at Zhang Tianwu's corpse that had collapsed in a heap in a pool of blood and slowly turned around, heading toward the marquee city of Yu Kingdom. Chapter 1077. Fu Chan has grown up. The battle in Marquee City was almost over. The elder in white was stained with blood and his face covered in dust. He seemed a little flustered. He wiped off the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His eyes were full of viciousness. Kiddo, both of us are holy warriors. It is not easy for you to kill me. Besides the elder in white and the eldest prince, the rest of the people were nearly wiped out. As both Fu Chen and the elder in white had attained lower holy warrior tier, even if the elder was slightly weaker than Fu Chen could never defeat the elder. Fu Chen too was wearing a white robe. However, he looked extremely pure and clean. There was not a speck of dust that could be seen on his robe. The eldest prince did not seem to care about the battle. He had been staring at Gu Yi since the beginning and could not tear his eyes away from her. Gu Yi felt that the eldest prince's gaze was too domineering and dominant. Hence, she hid behind the wolf. The wolf too knew that Gu Yi disliked the eldest prince's gaze. Hence, it took a few steps forward to block the eldest prince's line of sight. Seeing this, the eldest prince frowned and looked away. He glanced at the elder in white with a sneer. Grandpa, I told you to call me master. The elder's face darkened. Master, could you handle this spirit beast? After a moment of silence, the eldest prince asked. The eldest prince felt very much at ease seeing the elder in white. He hid behind the elder, relieved. With the elder's strength, this little demon could never defeat the elder. Moreover, this little demon was no human. It was merely a spirit beast that had assumed a human form. If the people out there knew this, there must be hundreds of thousands of warriors who wanted to kill him. Hence, its number was up. You are the spirit beast. Your entire family is made of spirit beasts. Fu Chen's face darkened. Shut up. The elder in white snarled. He turned to stare at Fu Chen with a bone-chilling gaze. You rascal, both of us are equally strong. Why don't we both take a step back? Give me the maiden and we, humans, shall share this realm together with the spirit beasts in the future. Hearing this, Fu Chen was enraged. Me for extra chapters. You idiot. I am not a spirit beast. How dare you call me a spirit beast? The elder in white merely glanced at Fu Chen, but did not say anything anymore. The corners of his lips curved into a faint smile. Since you are not saying anything, I take that to mean that you agree. We will take those maidens away. In the future, half of Tianyue Kingdom shall belong to the spirit beasts. Spirit beasts? Screw you. Boom! A ferocious wind swept through. Fu Chen's hair floated in the air. Burning with fury, Fu Chen gave the elder a good kick. The elder stretched his arms, wanting to block Fu Chen's attack, but he was not successful. An overwhelming force emanated from Fu Chen's foot sent the elder flying a few meters backward. A dark blue footprint could be seen etched onto the elder's aging arm. Suffering the burning, prickling pain, the elder's face changed. The smile at the corners of his lips faded and gloominess took its place. Fu Chen had nearly exploded with anger. You keep saying that I am a spirit beast. You are so annoying. You are, no doubt, insulting me. Don't you dare call me a spirit beast again. The elder marveled at Fu Chen, who was burning with fury as he thought to himself. Fu Chen is right. Calling us spirit beasts is such a humiliation to us. I am my mother's child, not a spirit beast. Qing Han lifted her small chin as she stuck her nose in the air. Chapter 1078. The winner takes it all. Originally, the elder was wondering about Fu Chen's real identity. Hearing this, he felt very much relieved. It turned out that these two little things thought that they were actually humans after living a long time together with humans. They must be out of their minds. Master, these two little things are on their high horses. We don't need to waste time on them. The eldest prince's face darkened. You really think I want to waste time with this thing? The elder in white robe frowned slightly. It was true that Fu Chen was not capable of killing the elder. However, the elder too was not capable of defeating Fu Chen. Fortunately, Fu Chen had just attained Holy Warrior tier not long ago. Hence, he did not have a full grasp of his own strength yet. Otherwise, the elder would be even worse off. Master, the eldest prince's eyes darkened. He believed that his master had yet to play his trump card. What is he waiting for? If he doesn't kill these two things, I will not be able to get Gui back and kill that ostentatiously unconscious lady. Currently, all the soldiers around them had lost their lives, lying in blood. On the entire street, only the elder in white and the eldest prince were still alive. They looked so lonely and helpless, like trees that had lost all their leaves. The elder in white clenched his fists tightly. His piercing gaze locked upon Fu Chen once again. I am giving you one more chance. If you could make peace with me, I will give you half of the kingdom. Hell no. The fire of indignation burned furiously within Fu Chen. Once again, he gave the elder a kick. Boom. A powerful force emanated from his foot and hit the elder's arm. Blazing with fury, the elder's face grew even darker. I have given you the chance, but you have given it up. Everyone in this realm will go after you in the future. Haha. The elder let out a boisterous laugh that echoed for a long time. Suddenly, the elder's laughter died away as he saw an aurora from not far away. A ferocious yellow wolfhound rushed toward him at an overwhelming momentum. Its eyes were ruthless. Most importantly, the yellow wolfhound was actually a Tier 7 spirit beast. The wolfhound turned around and pounced on the eldest prince. Seeing this, the elder's eyes reddened and shouted indignantly, "Stop me for extra chapters." However, it was too late. The wolfhound bit into the eldest prince's arm and yanked his entire arm off. The eldest prince shouted out in pain. He roared with uncontrollable fury and rushed toward the wolfhound when Fu Chen, in a white robe, stopped him. Bam! Fu Chen's hand landed on the elder's chest. As the elder was too indignant, his rage had overtaken his senses. He could not react in time and only felt a spiritual force emanating from Fu Chen's hand, piercing into his chest and spreading all over his body. His blood started to coagulate. With bloodshot eyes, the elder spat out a mouthful of blood. Don't you ever think that you could do whatever you want with two holy warriors? Let me tell you this. Tianyue Kingdom is not the only kingdom in this realm. There are many holy warriors in the other kingdoms. If they all come out for a battle, no one spirit beast could ever escape safely. Haha. Spirit beasts and humans were two different types of living creatures. When one of them became stronger, the weaker one would perish. Chapter 1079. The winner takes it all. I hints. If the people out there knew that a spirit beast had attained holy warrior tier, simply no one would turn a blind eye to this. In the ferocious wind, a beautiful lady came into sight. The lady was devastatingly gorgeous. Her beauty could bring the city to its knees. Standing aloof from the masses, the lady looked so imposing, just like a reigning monarch. A Wang Fuchun, don't let go of the people here. Move. In the imperial city of Tianyue Kingdom, in the imperial study, a middle-aged man in bright yellow robes was sitting upright, flipping through the memorial in his hand. At this time, an anxious voice spoke from outside. Someone barged into the imperial study and hurriedly kneeled down without even pronouncing his arrival. Your Majesty, something bad has happened. The spirit beasts are attacking the palace. What? Bang. The memorial in his hand fell to the ground. He got up hastily. The spirit beasts are attacking the palace? Where is the eldest prince? Where is the retired emperor? Both the eldest prince and the retired emperor have passed. The color drained from the emperor's face. The emperor had always been living a carefree life and had left everything to the eldest prince and the retired emperor. All he needed to do was to read through the memorials and spend time with his concubines and consorts. He did not even need to care about the battles. Now, someone was telling him that both the eldest prince and the retired emperor were dead? Why are these spirit beasts attacking the palace? The emperor asked a long while after he had slumped to the ground, his eyes blank. Your Majesty, it is related to the lady, Gui, whom the eldest prince forcibly brought into the palace not long ago. She was the friend of the spirit beast's master. These spirit beasts are here for revenge, the eunuch replied fearfully. The emperor was aware of Gui. She was irresistibly adorable, and even the eldest prince, who had never fallen for anyone before, could not help falling in love with her and wanted to make her his side consort one. The emperor had agreed to it, although he knew that the eldest prince had forcibly brought Gui back to the palace. The eldest prince would be the crown prince of Tianyue Kingdom in the future, while Gui was only an ordinary lady. He could naturally make anyone his consort. Moreover, Gui would only be a side consort. Hence, she was not a threat to the principal consort. However, the emperor had never thought that Gui was so powerful and could ruin the entire Tianyue Kingdom. Open the palace's gate. The emperor had suddenly made up his mind. He got up from the dragon throne, staggered to his feet, swaying a little. Shocked, the eunuch's eyes widened. Me for extra chapters. Your Majesty, we can't do this. Once the gate is opened, the spirit beasts would rush into the palace. Hundreds and thousands of people would lose their lives. Well, tell me, how many people have died in front of the palace gate? None of them survived. Since you know that the entire army has been wiped out and even the retired emperor could not stop these spirit beasts, do you think this small palace gate and the weak forces left in the palace could stop them? Tell me, besides the people that the eldest prince had brought with him, how many more people have died? Stunned, the eunuch contemplated. It had been a few days since the spirit beasts had come into the imperial city. However, it seemed that besides robbing the people, they had never hurt anyone. They only beat up the man who had bullied the spirit beasts and then rescued the spirit beasts from them. Open the palace's gate. If we don't open it now, it will be too late when they barge into the palace themselves. Chapter 1080. The winner takes it all. The emperor staggered out of the imperial study, lonely and dejected. Your Majesty, but say no more. I have always been a freeloader my entire life. Without the retired emperor, I could never save Tianyue Kingdom. The emperor had always been hiding behind someone's back. He could never fight in the front line. Had it not been for the retired emperor, he might have lost the throne. Currently, this was the only thing he could do, and hopefully, what he had done could save his life. Seeing that the emperor was so determined, the eunuch did not talk further and only walked quietly after the emperor. In the eldest prince's hall, Shindai had accidentally pricked her finger with the needle. Blood was seeping out of the wound. It made her feel a little uneasy in her heart. She hurriedly put her bleeding finger in her mouth and sucked gently. Your Highness. A servant stumbled into the hall from outside. Just as she walked through the door, she tripped over the door sill and fell to the ground. She crawled up to Shindai, crying, Your Highness, something has happened. Shindai merely frowned. What is making you so nervous? His Highness, the eldest prince, has passed away. The servant's words sounded like a clap of thunder in the clear sky, and it struck right into Shindai's head, causing a buzzing noise in her head. Shindai's face was ghastly pale. Her mind went blank. She wanted to get up from the chair, but had accidentally pushed the chair backward, losing her balance and falling to the ground. Your Highness. Bursting into tears, the servant ran up to Shindai and helped her up from the ground. Shindai's nail dug into the servant's skin. The servant winced in pain but was too afraid to retract her hand. Her eyes were flooded with tears. Simply no one knew the servant was crying out of sadness or pain. What did you just say? How could you curse His Highness? His Highness will never die. Absolutely not. Shindai rebuked. Your Highness, I am telling the truth. It is a news widespread in the palace that both the eldest prince and the retired emperor have passed away. The spirit beasts have entered the palace, and it is His Majesty's decree to open the gate. Shindai closed her eyes and shook her head in disbelief. It was such a ruthless fact that she could hardly take it. You are lying. You all are lying. His Highness will never die. What should I do if he is dead? What should I do? Me for extra chapters. Shindai had given her heart to the eldest prince ever since the first time she had met him when she was still a teenager. She knew that the eldest prince had never loved her back. He had married Shindai merely because her father was the Grand Preceptor who had commanded no less respect in Tianyue Kingdom. However, Shindai did not care. As long as she could marry the eldest prince and be by his side for the rest of her life, she was contented. Even if her heart was broken over and over again whenever the eldest prince took a concubine, one after another, she still stayed by him without reservation. Even if she knew that the eldest prince had given his heart to Gui, all Shindai wanted to do was to help the eldest prince win Gui's heart. What did Shindai do wrong? Why was God so cruel to take the eldest prince away from her? Arg! Shindai clutched her head in pain and shouted at the top of her voice. Her pale face was filled with the agony of despair. Your Highness! Who killed him? Shindai lifted her eyes, clenching her fists tightly. Her eyes went blank, but her voice was filled with resentment. It was Gui. The servant answered in agony. Chapter 1081. The winner takes it all. IV Gu. Shindai gritted her teeth hard. The eldest prince had loved Gu madly, treated her so well, and had indulged her every whim. This was something that Shindai could never get from the eldest prince. However, Gui was so ruthless and killed the eldest prince. Where is Yulan at now? Your Highness, Princess Yulan has always been staying in Yulan Palace and has never stepped out of it. All right, I want to go to Yulan Palace. Gui, you have killed the person who loves you the most and the person I love the most. I will make you regret the things that you have done for the rest of your life. Yulan has helped you a lot and did not hesitate to go against his brother because of you. But now, she will lose her life because of you. You will live your whole life full of remorse and agony. Shun Dai's eyes flickered with viciousness. The corners of her lips curved into a bloodthirsty smile. Perhaps, the servant knew what Shundai was after. She shook violently but was too afraid to stop Shundai. Lowering her head, the servant walked after Shundai, leaving the hall. The palace's gate was opened wide. Countless spirit beasts swarmed into the palace and flooded the entire palace in no time. In a bright yellow robe, the emperor's eyes were locked onto the young lady among the spirit beasts. Astonishment filled his eyes. The fear toward these spirit beasts had overtaken his lust. He did not have other thoughts in his mind besides astonishment. Maiden Gu, how are you doing? The emperor stared at Gu Yi with a smile hanging on his lips. I have no idea that my son has forcibly taken you into the palace. If only I had known this, all these things would never have happened. The emperor was too afraid to call himself an emperor before these people. His voice was kind and gentle in a friendly way of greeting an old friend. Do you even believe the things that you have just said? Gui huffed in disdain. The emperor's face stiffened. He heard that Gui had a sharp tongue. It turned out that it was real. The emperor turned his head to look at Feng Ruqing. Naturally, he knew that the spirit beasts were actually taking orders from Feng Ruqing. Maiden, there must be misunderstandings between us. I am opening the palace's gate to prove my sincerity. Could you please spare my life? At this time, the entire palace sank into silence. Me for extra chapters. The emperor of Tianyue Kingdom, who stood aloof from the masses and had commanded the greatest respect in the kingdom, had actually bowed down to this maiden, begging her to spare his life. However, simply no one laughed at the emperor as they knew Tianyue Kingdom's situation and the emperor had run out of choices. Misunderstanding? Feng Ruqing walked toward the emperor. A gust of light breeze blew as her sleeves fluttered. With a smile on her face, she looked even more flamboyant. If we had lost the battle at the palace's gate, would you still think this is a misunderstanding? As the saying went, the winner takes it all. If Feng Ruqing had lost the battle, she might have been held prisoner while the spirit beasts would have been completely wiped out. Startled, the emperor closed his eyes and only opened them after a while. Power is nothing in this world as strength surpasses all others. I am no match for you all. I surrender. You can take my throne, and all I ask is you to spare my life. I would rather live an ordinary life than die aggrieved. Even the lowly cricket and ant clung on to life, let alone human beings. Hence, the emperor did not feel shameful for saying this before everyone. As long as he could stay alive, his reputation was nothing. He could even give up the throne, let alone tainting his own reputation. Chapter 1082. The origin of Tsangyu mainland. It is true that you bow down to me now, but it doesn't mean that you will surrender yourself for your whole life. The corner of Feng Ruqing's lips curved into a faint smile. Feng Ruqing would not stay in this place for the rest of her life. If the emperor did not keep his words, all the spirit beasts in the entire forest of the spirit beasts would be massacred. Stunned, the emperor knew what Feng Ruqing was worrying about, and she did have a point. If the emperor's strength improved to a state where he was as strong as the retired emperor, or even stronger than the retired emperor, he would never sit back and do nothing to those who usurp the throne. Thinking of this, the emperor closed his eyes slowly. An overwhelming force dissipated from his body. In an instant, the entire palace was full of spiritual qi. Only after a long while did the emperor open his eyes. Originally, the spiritual qi within the emperor was so overwhelming, just like a vast ocean. Currently, His spiritual chi was just a small pool. I have dissipated my spiritual chi. Currently, I am only a dark warrior. Is that enough? It was truly hard to make a decision to degrade from a mortal warrior tier to dark warrior tier. Not everyone had the courage to do this. Maiden, if you still don't trust me, I am willing to eat the 5 venom leaf, so I could never make a breakthrough and will remain a dark warrior for my entire life. This was the Emperor's bottom line. He would never cripple his cultivation. If his cultivation was crippled, he could no longer stay in this realm. All right, you eat the 5 venom leaf and leave this palace alone. You don't have to take these people together with you, and you'd better leave in less than 15 minutes. Otherwise, you could never leave. After pondering for a long while, Feng Ruching nodded slightly. Hearing this, the Emperor straightened up and walked toward the palace gate. He did not even spare a glance at the servants and eunuchs who were still standing in the palace. Watching the Emperor leaving, he looked extremely lonely and helpless. Falling to the bottom of the chain from being an emperor was like falling to the ground from the sky. Fortunately, the Emperor was falling to the ground instead of a deep abyss. If the Emperor insisted on going against Feng Ruching, he would definitely fall into the deep abyss without any chance of survival. Who on earth did not want to stay alive? The Emperor was truly fortunate that Feng Ruching was not a ruthless lady and had spared his life. Seeing that the Emperor had left, the eyes of the people in the palace widened, dumbfounded. Then, they turned to look at Feng Ruching, who was standing in the wind. Currently, Feng Ruching looked as if she was the real ruler. The spirit beasts behind her were like huge troops, protecting their reigning monarch. If you want to stay, you can do so. However, if you want to leave, I won't stop you. Feng Ruching brushed her robe, her gaze scanning all the servants and eunuchs who stood fearfully rooted to the spot. Me for extra chapters. Sure enough, if any of you stir up trouble, you are no doubt following the same path as the eldest prince and the retired emperor. Everyone on the spot kneeled down in unison. The emperor had abandoned these people. Sure enough, they must bow down to this lady. Moreover, it was common for a kingdom to change its reigning monarch. The winners took it all. There was nothing that these people could not take. If the emperor chose to die rather than surrender, perhaps some of the devoted and loyal officials would have followed him. Now that the emperor had left everyone behind for his own life, they simply could not find any reason to go against Feng Ruching. Let's go. Disregarding the people who were still kneeling on the ground, Feng Ruching walked toward the imperial harem. Gui stepped into the imperial harem, once again, with a different feeling. Back then, she was forcibly brought into the palace by the eldest prince. This time, she was here together with the lady she loved. Naturally, the feeling was different. However, she did not know how Yulan was doing. Chapter 1083. The origin of Tsangyu mainland. II. On the way to Yulan Palace, a servant with her head covered in blood rushed out anxiously. Her eyes were flooded with tears. Gui could recognize the servant at a glance. The servant was Yulan's close-knit servant. Seeing this, Gui's face was drained of color. Her eyes were overcast with dark clouds. Maiden Gu. Seeing Gui, the servant burst into tears. Just now, the eldest princess consort has brought a group of people to look for Her Highness, Princess Yulan. I couldn't stop them. Hence, I was thinking of looking for His Majesty. However, I heard that someone else has conquered the palace. Just as the servant rushed out of Yulan Palace, Shundai stomped into the Yulan Palace menacingly with a group of people behind her. This servant wanted to stop them, but Shundai's strength was too strong. Naturally, the servant was no match for her. Fortunately, Shundai only threw this servant out and did not kill her. Hence, this servant quickly ran out to look for help. However, little did she know that the palace had fallen into someone else's hands, and simply no one knew where the emperor was. Who else could save the princess? Seeing the servant's anxious face, Gu Yi went pale. She seemed to know what could possibly happen. She quickly rushed to Yulan Palace together with 2 spirit beasts without informing Feng Ruqing. The 2 spirit beasts were sent by Feng Ruqing to protect Gu Yi. Hence, their strength was not inferior. Shindai was no match for them. In Yulan Palace, Shindai ruthlessly strangled Yulan. Her eyes were blazing with murderous intent. Yulan's face turned red. A trace of blood could be seen running down from the corner of her lips, falling onto the back of Shindai's hand. Yulan, you have actually let go of Gu Yi and harmed His Highness. He is your brother, your biological brother. Don't you feel remorseful? Shindai's face was nonchalant. Yulan merely sneered. Biological brother? Yulan and the eldest prince were not from the same mother. She had never treated him as her brother ever since she was little. Yulan was not close to the eldest prince. The only feeling she had toward the eldest prince was fear. Yulan was only afraid of the eldest prince. Hence, Yulan did not feel sad knowing that the eldest prince had passed. On the contrary, she felt grateful. Since the eldest prince had died, there was no need for Yulan to marry young Marquis Zhang. Yulan. Shindai was burning with fury. That slut was actually more important than her own brother? Well, you have asked for all this. Since you are so close to Gu Yi, I will make her regret the things that she has done in her entire life. Me for extra chapters. Before Shindai could finish her words and squeeze Yulan's neck even more forcefully, golden-haired lion pounced on Shindai from behind. Shindai could not help losing her grip. Yulan slid through Shindai's hand and fell to the ground. Yulan's red cheek was restored its natural skin color. Stroking her throat, she coughed incessantly. The desperate gasping for air made Yulan feel as if she had revived from death. She felt immensely relieved now. Outside Yulan Palace, a maiden wearing an emerald green robe rushed into the palace. With refined features, she looked exquisitely beautiful. When she saw Yulan, she regained her calmness. You are back. Thrilled with joy, Yulan raised her head to look at the maiden who was standing at the palace's door. Why do you want to kill Yulan? Gu Yi bit her lower lip and turned to look at Shindai. Chapter 1084. The Origin of the Tsangyu Mainland III Without Fear. Shindai sneered. Her smile was full of satire, and her eyes filled with irony. Gu Yi, you boisterous girl. His Highness was so in love with you. With your poor strength and humble background, who do you think you are to reject him? Why did you hurt the man who loved you the most in this world? His Highness has died because of you. I want you to regret the things that you have done. I want to kill Yulan so you will live a life full of remorse and misery. It was too late. It was a near miss indeed. Shindai only needed a bit more time, and Yulan would have been strangled to death so that by the time Gu Yi barged in, she could only see Yulan's remains. By then, she could meet the eldest prince unashamedly in the underworld. Gu Yi's eyes darkened. It turned out that it was actually her fault for not loving the eldest prince back, and that the eldest prince who had forcibly brought Gu Yi back to the palace had done nothing wrong for doing so. However, Gu Yi knew that it was a waste of time to continue talking to Shindai, a stubborn lady. Hence, she looked away as she said calmly, since you can't live without him, I will let both of you meet each other in the underworld. You don't have to thank me. Big Lion, kill her. I don't want to see her again. As soon as Gu Yi finished speaking, she turned to look into the sky. Tianyue Kingdom had finally regained its peace. However, simply no one knew whether there would be another ferocious storm hitting the kingdom. Moreover, Gu Yi did not know how they could leave this place. There was a small kingdom located on an island in an unknown mysterious continent. Although this kingdom was small with a low-density population, there was no lack of warriors in the kingdom. More importantly, Haitian Kingdom was the only kingdom in the continent that could live peacefully with the spirit beasts. At this time, a young lady was sitting by the pool. Her long, slender feet were immersed in the water. Countless fishes could be seen swimming carefreely around her feet, as if kissing her toes. Me for extra chapters. Your Highness, it seems that you have always been surrounded by spirit beasts, birds, or other animals ever since you were little. You are the reason that Haitian Kingdom could live harmoniously with the spirit beasts. A servant, Xiao Ying, who stood behind the young lady, could not help exclaiming. The princess had always been kind. Perhaps the spirit beasts could feel the gentleness from the prince's heart, so they liked to be close to her. The princess had even convinced the emperor so Haitian Kingdom could coexist with the spirit beasts. The young lady looked so pure and enchantingly gorgeous, just like an untainted lily. Her smile was full of subtle charm. With a snowy white robe, she looked so ethereal and otherworldly, like an immortal. Xiaoying, the spirit beasts have the right to live in this realm. None of us could deprive them of their lives. Her Highness, I have heard of something. This realm is said to have been created by a god, the ninth emperor. Xiaoying grinned. In fact, no one truly knew the origin of this realm previously until 1 year ago. A warrior of Haitian Kingdom found a mausoleum on this island. It was the mausoleum of the ninth emperor. He also found an ancient book that recorded the origin of this realm. However, Haitian Kingdom had always sealed itself off and never communicated with the world outside. The other kingdoms disliked the kingdom that associated itself with spirit beasts. Hence, they have never kept in with Haitian Kingdom. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.